Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Principle in Balance, Leading at Work and Living a Life by Jessica Cabeen. Narrated by Courtney Patterson. Publisher's note: in this audiobook, you will hear prompts for taking notes or answering questions. Please have a journal or note-taking device available. Forward. I accepted my first principal job 17 years ago. It meant a move across the state of Wisconsin to a place our family had never been. My wife and 2 sons, ages 5 and 2 at the time, packed up the truck and started what we were convinced was going to be the best adventure ever. In October of that first year, I remember walking into my house after a particularly difficult Thursday at school. Student issues, staff issues, parent issues, and supervisor issues all seemed to hit on a crisp, cool Wisconsin fall day. I saw the boys and my wife at the kitchen table getting ready to eat dinner as I fumbled into the house, exhausted, and put my bag down. I sat down at the table, famished from not eating anything while at school, and began to attack the wonderful meal my wife prepared for everyone. After what seemed to be only a few minutes, I looked up from my plate, and the boys were gone. My extremely supportive wife was looking my way, and I asked her where the boys had gone. Her response was, "Your son just asked you 3 questions about your day, and you never even picked your head up. We need to figure this thing out really quickly." I would love to tell you that from that moment I have been an incredible husband and a wonderful father who has everything figured out. But that's simply not true. I absolutely have struggled, and that comes with the job. Having said that, when we go and go and go and do and do and do, we don't take a step back to realize the impact of go, go, go and do, both positively and negatively. Often we look back and can't remember how we got there. That is not balance, and we simply can't attain our best selves when we live a life without it. Leadership is hard, and what often happens is the people who we go home to, who love us the most and give us the most latitude, often get the least of us because of what is happening at school. We go home and think about other people's kids and families while we try to engage with our own. Conversely, if we haven't found balance at home, we spend the day leading a group of hundreds or thousands while thinking about what we are missing at home. Either way, success is limited in both areas. Jessica Cabeen has found a way to articulate the struggles of balance while finding meaningful ways to adjust practice and help you succeed both at school and at home. The quotes are inspirational and provide hope, but the practical application of what you can do as a leader to not only move forward but feel better is what kept the pages turning for me. There are so many resources out there that provide inspiration with no plan, and though all are engaging in the moment, few have found a way to help me move forward as a leader, both at school and at home. Principle in Balance elicits hope, but then gives you something you can do to turn the hope into success for you and those you lead. The ground rules did just that. They grounded the work in the why. The gentle reminders made me laugh, but also think about things I have put on autopilot. Doing the homework put the thoughts into action in a way that wasn't overwhelming, and yet I could see little wins in the action taking place every day. You are going to love Principle in Balance. You are going to come back to it. You are going to reference it with those you lead. I only wish it was sitting on that kitchen table 17 years ago. Joe Sanfilippo, Ph.D., 2019 Ed Dive National Superintendent of the Year, author and speaker. Part 1. The Ground Rules of Balance. When you live well, you lead well. # Principle in Balance. The inspiration for this book came from an unexpected Friday in May. If you are an educator, you know nothing is expected, and there are always surprises in May, especially in May of 2021. On this Friday, I spent the morning dancing with my mask on and waving to 400 hybrid students in Ellis Middle School. I went into a 6-hour planning session for the upcoming master schedule while trying to balance the 80 emails I received. I ran home quickly to let our pandemic puppy out at lunch, came back, crafted a few parent messages for our school messenger, and said goodbye to students as they got on buses for home and sports. During the day, I was criticized, yelled at, and at the end of the day, hung up on. At 4:00 p.m., my normal routine was to get my 5th coffee of the day and settle in for a few hours of work and emails while my teenagers were out and my husband was at work. But not this Friday. On this day, I logged off and left school. I drove 40 minutes with no podcasts, music, emails, calls, or conferences. Just quiet. I stood in Minnesota May weather. Sleet/snow is always possible, and cheered on my 8th grade son and his newly acquired sport, track. Typically, when I got home to get him off the bus from his meet, I would race home and finish what came through when I was offline. Instead, this Friday, we drove to watch a friend's soccer game for another 2 hours. By the time I got home, I was so fulfilled from spending time with my son, I didn't feel guilty about not putting in the usual 14-hour workday. So often, as servant leaders, we have a hard time learning when to stop and focus on ourselves. I just can't believe it took me a random Friday in May, well into my educational career, to realize it. So, entering the later stages of my career, I have learned a lesson I wish I would have learned much earlier on. Life is more than our title. Our primary priorities should rest outside of our day job. I strive every day to be a better principal in balance, one who is learning to lead at work and have a life, one who embraces time in rest instead of resisting the chance to pause, a person who learns to let the angry phone calls go and lean into the relationships of those closest to me at school and at home. I am becoming a principal who recognizes I can't be good for anyone if I am not good to myself first. One who has embraced a regular morning routine that always involves some form of self-care. A principal who has broken up with her cell phone and continues to find ways to regulate tech to be productive, focused, and less distracted by beeps, tweets, and notifications. These life lessons have been learned over the past 10 years on many unexpected Fridays. I have lost time with family because I prioritized emails and evening school activities over bedtime with a toddler. I almost lost friends because I always was distracted by emails, texts, and phone calls instead of focusing on who was right in front of me. And for a period, I lost myself and who I was supposed to be when the adoption of our son was disrupted. So, how are you? Are you in a season where you question why you are teaching or leading? Are you struggling with prioritizing what needs to get done and what you can delegate or just let go? Have you canceled or forgotten to schedule your own medical, dental, and counseling appointments because you just don't have time? Yet, will you cover a colleague's class so they can make their own appointments? Do you remember the last time you went to dinner with friends, family, or your spouse? What about the last time you sat and read a book? For fun. Teachers, paraprofessionals, administrative assistants, central office staff, please don't let the title of this book deter you from reading. Being a principal in balance is more than a school title, but an opportunity to lead your own work and life, no matter what your business card says. Becoming a principal in balance is not an endpoint, but a journey. Whether you are in a season of struggle or walking into a new position with pride and accomplishment, we can all use a few gentle reminders to reflect, recalibrate, and refocus. This book tackles some of the biggest struggles educators have in reaching points of rest. It also offers tips in setting habits to establish long-term and meaningful routines that focus on you and your family first. As a student of resiliency, a resistor of burnout, and a recent believer of the importance of daily rest, I have learned a lot about what it can look like to be a principal in balance on a Tuesday when you are 3 teachers short, or when you get to work and find out you have a sick child at home. Through these experiences, we will walk through ways to establish habits for health and navigate the hiccups to the plans you put in place. I will admit, this is kind of a bold move to write a book on balance when I am still trying to figure it out. Yep, I haven't found the unicorn, the perfect fit, or the magic key to making my life work every day. What I do have is a passion to make a difference, and an understanding I can't operate at an unsustainable pace for long. You see it every day on social media, news outlets, and other channels. We are tired. You hear it from friends, co-workers, and trusted colleagues in work and life. I need to quit. You feel it in the perceived pressures from TV, popular opinion, and Facebook posts. If you aren't on all the time, you aren't living the life you should lead. I have days where I am pulled back into the position of busyness as a badge of honor. I still struggle with understanding that sometimes I have to slow down to see exactly the direction I am trying to go. When you are used to going at an unsustainable pace, creating a normal rhythm seems selfish and slow. Finding joy in seeing margin in your calendar seems counterintuitive to the pace of filling every day in your planner and accounting for every minute in the day. And my heart still hurts when I say no to others because I need to stop and say yes to myself. When we are called to a career that prioritizes serving, it can create, unintentionally, a sense of sacrifice over ourselves, no matter what the cost. In this work, I have learned a lot of lessons, and through this journey, I have been acknowledged in many ways. In 2016, I received the NAESP Vinci Digital Leader of Early Learning Award. I also struggled with feeling like I wasn't enough for the students I served and my family at home. In 2017, I was awarded the National Distinguished Principal Award for the state of Minnesota. And in 2018, I was slammed on social media by fake accounts and false stories about my ability to lead in schools. In 2019, I was speaking regularly and had published my 4th book. And in 2020, COVID was the lowest low of my career. In 2021, I was recognized as the K-12 Dive Education Awards Principal of the Year. And in the winter of 2022, I experienced daily anxiety attacks that at times incapacitated me at work and in life. I don't share this with you for sympathy. I offer these examples, and trust me, I have many more, to highlight that this work will have ups and downs, and finding the balance requires you to find ways to stabilize the time between the highs and lows, so the climb and the fall is not so hard when they happen. Seeking plateaus in the process. There is an old saying, the higher you climb, the harder you fall. I can take that to mean that the further you grow in your career, the more advanced you become and the accolades you achieve in your life, the harder it will hurt when someone or something tries to take it away, or you struggle in your daily walk of this work. What I would challenge you to do with this work, and within this book, is to find the plateaus between the mountains and the valleys. Recently, I went on a college visit with my son Kenny to my alma mater, the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. It has incredible programs, great sports teams, a wonderful music program, and a killer hill on campus. It's not an exaggeration to say it is the largest Midwest mountain around. That hill was part of the reason I gladly moved off campus my junior year. The thing was straight up, both ways. So when the tour started, I knew we were going to have to climb that hill. Mind you, I hiked that thing in my late teens, and now 20-some years later I was going to tackle it again? My mind was gearing up for how hard it was going to be, and how I could save face when my heart rate was racing. But while I was worried about what would go wrong, something happened. We stopped halfway. In all my years of hiking and pushing through just to get to the top, I missed the plateau halfway up. The 5 minutes we spent catching our breath made up for the exhaustion I would have felt had we just kept going. By stopping, I also had a chance to slow down and look around. In climbing any mountain, there are always incredible views, but you miss it if your only focus is to finish. Seeking balance will require you to use plateaus in the journey more than you think you should. Try to use a plateau for a pause instead of pushing up a mountain that, when you reach the top, you realize you didn't want to climb. Use a plateau to break your fall halfway when you realize you have taken on too much at work or in life and need to rest and recalibrate before you climb again. Use a plateau to lean into when others' thoughts and opinions are keeping you in the weeds that slow down your abilities to lead at work and have a life. And who knows, when you rest midway up, or recover from sliding down, you might see some incredible views and gain an important perspective on the life you want to live. Ready to find the plateau and start the journey? This book walks through the stages of establishing balance, boundaries, and ways to prevent burnout. Strategies for further work will also be included so you can find the one most applicable, whatever season you are in. We walk through this book in 4 stages, which are the guiding ground rules of the work. Ground Rules of Balance. This section gives a detailed rationale for why we need to take care of ourselves before we get into the work of caring for others. Through the lens of a practitioner enhanced with research and suggestions from professionals in the work of well-being, resiliency, and rest, this section has you set a foundation for the work ahead. Dream big. This section is all about setting and achieving goals while creating realistic plans for your passions. Before we can get into the how and what, it is important we create our why. Why do you want to lose weight? Why do you want a new position? Why do you feel called to pause on your professional life to work on starting a family, or form deeper relationships with the family you already have? Creating a why will help you throughout the book when things get hard, and they will. Live colorfully. This section explores how to thrive, not just survive. How in the world do you accomplish this in a day when hustle is many of our nicknames? Living colorfully will require you to lead a different type of life, one that might go outside the traditional lines and be filled with color, not just shades of gray. In this segment, we will learn the importance of setting boundaries, not just boundaries with people, but with our time, what gets stuck in our mind, and how technology can help or hurt this work. Lead boldly. This section puts you in the driver's seat of your learning. We review action plans and find ways to manage the hiccups before they become insurmountable hurdles. Feel confident in taking charge of your learning and learn how to cultivate habits to help you along the way. Within each section, we set ground rules for the work you will engage in. Some of these rules are common sense. Others will feel uncomfortable. I challenge you to lean into the discomfort and press forward in the chapter. Chances are, the aspects of balance that are the most uncomfortable will be the ones that push you to do something you never thought possible, or something you never thought you deserved. This is hard work, no way around it. Gentle reminders are just that, things to consider as you practice the tenets of becoming a principal in balance. This is an opportunity to give yourself grace as you start to prioritize yourself and your health before anything else. And just like anything else school-related, each chapter will have a section entitled Doing the Homework. The assignment will either help you make plans, create habits, or hold yourself accountable for the work in this book. Please don't forget to do this work. It is essential in becoming a principal in balance to put into practice what you are reading, gain perspective of how this work will flow, and prioritize daily self-care, soul care, and resilience practices. My hope for each of you is to have that unexpected Friday and free yourself from the burdens of others' expectations and plans, and walk forward confident in your own skin and calling. Let's disrupt what we think we should be doing and reconstruct life in better balance, one worth leading and living. Chapter 1. Rationale for Resiliency. From the lowest pit to the top of the mountain, how do you thrive? #Principle in Balance. Every day I see students who demonstrate resilience from change, adversity, or trauma. My own son, who saw more in his first 5 years than most would in their entire life, continues to amaze and inspire me with his willingness to move forward no matter the setback. So why is it we can see resiliency and success in our own students, but not recognize the need for them in ourselves? Do they need support, help, and a network to support practices to build resiliency at their unique leadership level? Absolutely. Do leaders struggle to see through the clouds and find the silver lining when work and life collide or collapse? Of course. Do leaders recognize the signs of burnout and seek help? Not always. Will they support and serve others through difficult experiences, often at their own expense? A lot of the time. That being said, let's take a tough look at what it takes to become more resilient in the face of changes, challenges, or chaos at work or home. What is resiliency? Resiliency, an ability to recover from or adjust easily to adversity or change. Getting back up after a fall, looking for the silver lining, seeing the glass half full, bouncing back. You have heard them all, and sometimes while rolling your eyes. Whatever the saying, the meaning is consistent. Resilience is the ability and flexibility to accept challenges. This requires a foundational purpose for why you have been called to this opportunity. Along with that, you need the skills to recover from any fall or falter that happens in the work. There is another way to look at this, in non-academic terms. Adjust your nucleus so you don't go nuclear. #Principle in Balance. Our nucleus is our core, beliefs, passions, and abilities to navigate life. When intact and stable, it gives us the ability to navigate the obstacles in front of us. We can often handle hiccups and detours in the path seamlessly. People might notice how calm you are amidst the chaos. Like the formal definition, my middle school girl example requires the same. Grounded in purpose, willing to accept changes, and flexible with the results and the timing of the outcome. However, when our nucleus is constantly attacked, it can start to crack, and things can leak out, causing a memorable nuclear moment. These moments can be different for everyone depending on the circumstance. It might mean blowing up at someone for a minor question. It could be crying over something that any other day wouldn't mean much of anything. Nuclear to me is reminiscent of the "help me help you" scene in the movie Jerry Maguire. Jerry was giving Rod Tidwell a little advice in regard to improving his off-the-field performance, and he refused the advice. Jerry suddenly goes into a full-on 3-year-old temper tantrum meltdown. His thought bubble pops, and he says everything he was thinking and ultimately causes Rod to laugh and end the scene with, "You, my friend, are hanging on by a very thin thread." Sound familiar? We have all had that nuclear moment. The difference between nuclear and not depends on the resiliency of your nucleus. During the process of adopting a child, I read all the books and blogs, took the classes, and networked with other moms in various stages of the process. I attended the weekend boot camps in which counselors, social workers, and adult adopted children prepared us for the worst by giving us strategies for the best. But in all those hours and all that research, I missed the chapter on what to do when your adoption is terminated. My therapist called it ambiguous loss, which means loss without closure, a death without a body, an adoption without a child. And that was the start of my long Jerry Maguire season. During the weeks after the termination of our adoption, I experienced a wide range of emotions and struggled to find a rhythm as I returned to work the day after we were told the news. I would cry often and unexpectedly. I lost my appetite. I lost focus at work and home. The interactions that normally brought me joy felt like nothing. I was numb. In a way, I refused to come to terms with the situation. I continued to write in a journal for our son and planned to find a way to visit him later in life. I kept quiet about the loss to those who didn't know our story. Pretending it didn't happen was easier than feeling the emotions while retelling the story. Life felt different for a long time, and because I hadn't spent time developing resiliency, my nucleus was shattered. I had to find ways to build up a reserve for what was to come. We have all overcome obstacles. Some of us have faced difficult traumas, and some of us demonstrate bravery in moving past a difficult situation or circumstance. When in it, we tend to overlook the importance of building up our resilience. This could include finding ways to manage emotions, redefining purpose, creating activities for stress relief, seeking self-care, and building self-regulation strategies. Finally, with the help of a team of support at school and my spouse at home, I was able to find a therapist. This allowed me the opportunity to start working through the feelings of loss and find ways to rebuild the stamina of living life a little fuller after a loss. During the months after the ambiguous loss, I found that rebuilding my self-care routine helped to create stability in my day. Finding a therapist to connect with allowed me to have someone look inside and help me to stop awfulizing and start finding purpose on this path I didn't intend to take. I regained my purpose of serving and supporting children and families as an assistant principal and started to find joy in my work. After a few months of rebuilding this routine and reestablishing consistent resilience practices, something happened. This time it played out like a Lifetime movie. The adoption process was reinstated, and a week later I was on a plane by myself, traveling across the country to bring home a 4.5-year-old boy. Through the struggles of the previous months, I was so fortunate to have built up consistent resiliency strategies that would help me prepare for the trips, falls, and failures to come. Building resiliency. It doesn't take a significant event to put your resilience in check. And for all of us, March 2020 was the start of a long road ahead and a priority to build new protective factors to face the pivots, pressures, and pain to come. During the spring of 2020, any resiliency reserves I had were spent. I thought if I just kept trying what had always worked, it would eventually click. I was wrong. Living through a pandemic while trying to lead a school from your basement and support your own children upstairs was a non-stop, chaotic series of events that only seemed to get worse. By May, I realized my pace, combined with my attitude, was not sustainable. Burnout, blow-ups, and breakdowns were occurring more often, and I was slowly becoming someone I didn't recognize. Realizing this was not going to go away in August, after the summer break, I decided to dig deeper into the research around resilience for myself, as well as for the educators and families I would serve again after the summer. A dear friend connected me with the work of Dr. Clay Cook, and by the end of June, I started a course he offered online entitled Becoming a Resilient Person: The Science of Stress Management and Promoting Well-Being. Through this course, I gained a deeper understanding of not only the importance of resilience in my personal life, but how to support other educators in building their own reserves as we return to school amidst a pandemic. One of the key aspects of the course I continue to live by is that a resilient person is someone who purposely strives to be as mentally and psychically healthy as possible, possesses the confidence to effectively cope with and manage stressful situations, is compassionate towards self and others, demonstrates grit or perseverance even in the face of adversity, focuses on the positive and fulfilling.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?